1 week season.
Hey, welcome in, OWS fam. Glad you are back with us here in the DFS lab. You guys know the drill. Here we are on Tuesday, September 9th, ready to talk through a week 2 lineup here on the DFS lab. I'm your host, Cheeseman, and I'm going to be welcoming up Hilow now. And Hilow, week 1 is behind us, man. How was week 1 for you? Any observations, anything that was interesting, whether that be the league itself or maybe just like what you saw from the field in the DFS realm?
Yeah, the big observations for me are the Bengals defense still sucks. The Miami defense still sucks, and the Panthers defense still sucks. So we're going to use those when we build this roster. Obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday. This is like first look. But those are kind of going to be some of the themes that we're looking at. Otherwise, like for the DFS slate itself in week 1, like we have 2 years now of data since they got rid of preseason week 4 to where now like we've seen low scores back-to-back years in week 1.
Yeah.
We kind of talked a little bit about that throughout the week last week, but moving forward, like we have to be treating week 1 like preseason week 4 moving forward, I think. The $5 Millie Maker winner scored 198. That's insane. There were 877,000 entries in that contest, and the winner scored 198.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The power sweep. Yeah. So like the power sweep, we were talking about it. The winner was in the mid 160s. The spy, the winner was like in the low 160s. So that is an extremely low scoring week. Moving forward, we're probably going to start ticking up the score required to ship some of these. So we're going to keep that in mind as well when we're talking about theory and stuff. How do we attack these slates?
Absolutely, dude. And just quickly before we jump into the week, wanted to let you guys be aware of the props package is on sale at 1 week season for week 2. Week 1, the props, there were 7 main NFL props, and they went 5 and 2. So this week 2 pass, a 1 week pass, $9. So it's about 50% off. Just, pretty low risk way to kind of get a feel for what it's like and what the picks are like. So might have some good ones this week again. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, that ROI in week 1, chef's kiss.
Indeed, man. And again, that's a nice way to balance things out sometimes. Now, I did some prize picks and that kind of stuff in week 1. It was hoping that I would balance out a disappointing DFS week, and it didn't happen. But a lot of times that does balance it out. Like a DFS week goes bad, but props can be good, and you end up being even on the week. It's a nice way to keep things even.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
Got to balance the risk. Cool, dude. Well, let's jump into DraftKings here, and any contests you have your eye on here for this coming week that you want to build for in today's show.
Let's do the spy again. So we'll stick to the single entry streets. And I think there's some interesting approaches that we can take to building rosters in a single entry contest this week. So we'll do that.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Yeah. So as we kind of take this high level look first here on week 2, any matchups that are just kind of, that you're just kind of savoring here that are looking pretty interesting?
Yeah, so again, I want to be targeting the Dolphins. I want to be targeting the Bengals, and I want to be targeting the Panthers. Early season, the Panthers have the same defensive coordinator that they had last year, Ejiro Evero, who we know plays increased rates of cover 3. Typically, what we're going to see is in-breaking stuff is going to be extremely beneficial to targeting that coverage. We'll talk to that here shortly. I want to be targeting the Dolphins. We'll talk to that shortly. And I want to be targeting the Bengals with the understanding that the field is probably going to want to be targeting the Bengals as well. And we have Travis Etienne, who now showed us in week 1 that he is the primary guy out of the backfield. They trade Tank Bigsby. So I have a feeling that Travis Etienne is going to garner some significant ownership here. So we'll talk about in a single entry format how we want to leverage against that.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So so you said, okay, Bengals, Panthers, and what was the last defense you said you still want to target?
The Dolphins.
Awesome. Cool.
So we'll start with the Panthers. This one's pretty easy to me. We have Kyler Murray's Arizona Cardinals, who they looked the part in week 1 that we expected. Their defense is probably, I think, got too much hype for the early season returns. That's probably going to get better. We saw this defense playing better as the year progressed last season. But their offense was fairly static. And one of the things that we didn't expect is how involved Trey Benson was going to be in the backfield. So, I mean, he effectively like rotated drives with James Conner. So we want to be targeting the Panthers. We don't necessarily have that warm and fuzzy to be targeting the Cardinals backfield. So against cover 3, against a defense who's going to give up stuff over the middle of the field, who's going to give in-breaking routes, it just screams Trey McBride. So we'll just stomp Trey McBride into this roster and build around that first. So that satisfies like the first team that we want to be targeting. So we'll go to the second, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, we talked about how the field is probably going to want to be hammering Travis Etienne. We saw Brian Thomas Jr. be kind of not have the on-field connection with Trevor Lawrence. Missed multiple throws, had one called back on a 25-yard reception. They get him involved in the run game. He scores a rushing touchdown, but we should just be like hammering Brian Thomas Jr. in this matchup. The Bengals secondary is in shambles. The Bengals offense did not look good regardless of playing their starters in the preseason. Brian Thomas Jr. is probably going to be one of the bigger leverage options on the slate. So we'll enter BTJ.
So you aren't concerned at all that, like, for some reason Trevor Lawrence just, for lack of a better term, doesn't really want to target Brian Thomas? You think that was just
No, he was still looking for him. He was still looking for him. And I think based on my reading the situation, like Liam Cohen is going to make some adjustments this week. I mean, he is a good NFL coach. I would expect things to be simplified for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I would expect him to try and get him into a rhythm here. And what better way than to be targeting your top option on some more layup style targets. So a lot of what BTJ was doing was kind of downfield towards the sideline. I would expect some more layup in breaking stuff. We kind of expected that against the Panthers. We didn't really see it. That was kind of left over to Brenton Strange had like 3 receptions on the first drive. And then they kind of devolved into targeting Travis Hunter after that. So I would expect they want to get Brian Thomas Jr. going here. And what better way against the Bengals?
And you said just before I asked you that question that Brian Thomas Jr. is a great leverage opportunity. Like, did you want to expound on that?
Yeah, it's just as simple as like Travis Etienne is probably going to be one of, if not the highest ownership at the running back position. And we're talking about single entry. You don't have to stray as far. So this kind of simple pivot in how we're constructing the roster will do some significant damage in a field this size.
Love that. I absolutely love that.
So let's go to the third team we want to be targeting. We want to be targeting the Miami Dolphins. And it's a very interesting setup because we have the New England Patriots coming into town fresh off of their loss to the Raiders. So if I'm looking at this, how this team wants to operate, they probably want to establish that run game a little bit better, which in turn will open up downfield passing. So if I'm looking at this structure of this Patriots team, the downfield option is actually Kayshon Boutte. So he's coming off of
some good weeks with him last year.
Yeah, and he's coming off of an 8-target, 6-reception, 103-yard game. If we are looking at the state of this roster, I mean, Stephon Diggs still coming off of the ACL injury, did not look explosive at all in this offense. Then you have Hunter Henry, who's the middle of the field guy. Their downfield option is Boutte. So if I'm looking at how do I attack this Miami poor secondary, it's Kayshon Boutte. And I don't know if he's going to get steamed this week, even coming off of a 100-yard game priced at $4,500, because we just generally don't like attacking the downfield options for the Patriots. But if they get this run game going, if they are a little bit more efficient, and Ramondre Stevenson had an okay efficiency day in week 1, then that should open up the downfield passing. So we're going to enter Boutte. We're going to stack him up with Drake Maye to kind of double dip on the upside against the Dolphins.
Love that play. Drake Maye also has that rushing upside as well. So yeah, that's a pretty exciting opportunity.
Yeah, so we've taken care of the three teams that we want to be targeting, and now we're going to look at like some injuries and what that opens up. And this is something that you can do in single entry. We kind of take that block approach. And JM has talked about this for years, but if we look at the San Francisco 49ers, we have Jawan Jennings with a shoulder injury coming off a calf injury and a shortened camp due to the holdout. He gets hurt again. I don't know if he's going to play with the shoulder injury, but he's clearly not right just yet. And we talked about it with Terry McLaurin last week, how like it takes the body ramp up time. So I would expect Jawan Jennings to either be limited or out. They're going to be without George Kittle for at least 3 weeks, it looks like, with a hamstring injury. Current reports or recent reports were 3 to 5 weeks. So now we have the 49ers playing the Saints. And again, we talked last week about how like the Saints probably aren't as bad as we thought they were coming into the season, but their defense can be beaten. Their defense is extremely strong in the front seven, but their back end can be had. So when we're looking at the 49ers, it's like, who do they have left? They're without Jawan Jennings potentially. They're without George Kittle. They're without what's his name? Brandon Ayuk. So It's effectively down to just CMC and Ricky Pearsall. Yeah. So if we say like, are the 49ers going to fall apart against the Saints? Like that's within the range of outcomes. But if they are producing, and they could be without Brock Purdy, I forgot to mention that. They could be without Brock Purdy as well, who picked up a toe and then a left something.
Yes, it was left
something
shoulder,
to his left shoulder injury. So that means we could see Mac Jones. But if I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm planning this week for without all those players that we mentioned, potentially a backup quarterback, I'm going to say I'm going to simplify things as much as possible, and I'm going to make this layup offense happen. If that's the case, like CMC coming off of 10 target game, that's crazy. We just jam him in. So we're going to jam CMC in, but we're also going to jam Ricky Pearsall in. So this is something that you can do like in a single entry contest, this like block mentality. I'm saying, hey, I'm just betting on the offense, the 49ers succeeding. They're probably not going to get an exorbitant amount of ownership because of all the injuries and because of Brock Purdy might be out. So I'm just saying, like, if the 49ers succeed, I'm going to place my bet on them through their two primary pieces and like just capture all of the production in a block mentality.
Now, will the block mentality, is that kind of not optimal for a larger field contest? Would you say better suited for single entry?
Right. I would pick and I would mix and match those two if I were entering like MME style contests. So like the Millie Maker, or we'll just use the extreme of the Millie Maker. I can place my bet on the San Francisco 49ers and just say like I'm going to have 40% CMC and 40% Ricky Pearsall. And if one of those guys goes off, then I'm in a good position for the weekend, and not say like, because you're sacrificing a smidge of ceiling by doing this block mentality, which we can do in single entry because we know that the winner is likely to be further from optimal.
Exactly. Because if CMC were to get 30 and Pearsall 20, then that's still a good score at 50. But if you take away the Pearsall 20 and put in another player who gets also 30 from a different team, that could be better for the Millie. But then you have that security with the floor for the single entry. Right.
And now what are we left with? We're left with, we need a running back, we need a flex, and a defense. So there's a couple things that we can do here. We can play a running back in one of the game environments that we've already attacked. And that's probably a good place to start. So let's look. We've attacked Cincinnati, we've attacked Miami. So right there, that's Chase Brown and Devon Achane. We can go to either of those places. And they're priced right next to each other. So let's just enter Chase Brown and we'll see kind of what that gives us. We could very easily go Devon Achane. I prefer the matchup for Chase Brown, so we'll kind of err on the side of him.
Yeah, like that for sure. So that gives us, for defense and flex, 4K remaining on average.
Okay, so let's look at 4K. We're thinking flex. We're probably going to want that to be closer to 5K to have some maneuverability for flex. So we'll go to defense, and that leaves us probably in the 3K range. And that, I mean, the Rams are chilling there right at 3,100. A good solid defense again against a rookie quarterback now in his second game. And we talked about how we want to be targeting that last week with the Broncos.
Broncos D.
So we'll throw the Rams in there. And that leaves us 4,900 now. Excuse me. So, that's an interesting price range. We have Calvin Ridley at 4,900. We have Roma Dunze at 4,800. We have Rashid Shaheed at 4,500. And then we have Chris Olave at 49.
Right, which is that, yeah.
Chris Olave, 12 targets in week one. Again, if this team is not as bad as the field thinks they are, Chris Olave probably carries some fairly significant upside here, playing in that same game environment of the 49ers that we've already done that block mentality. So we can just place a bet on Chris Olave here and say like he sees double-digit targets again and carries significant ceiling on that.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Yeah, I mean, or whoops, I put Ridley in instead of Olave there. Yeah, love the Olave play. And again, like maybe New Orleans at home does look a little bit better this week. And if Olave has a touchdown on top of last week's score, that's a very good score.
Yeah, and even so, I mean, this Saints team, like they were in the game the entire time against the Cardinals. The Cardinals never jumped out to a massive lead. And I talked about that, how like I thought the Cardinals could be like a survivor pool buster for week one. Didn't come to fruition. They almost had the opportunity to tie the game at the end or take the lead on 2-point conversion. But I mean, the call was there. The Saints team probably isn't as bad as the field is thinking.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And again, maybe they make some strides in week one. Obviously, the jury is still out on Rattler. But yeah, I mean, he held it together. It wasn't setting anything on fire in week one.
He was poor, but he was poor.
What did you see? Did you watch the film on that already, or
I haven't yet. I watched just the highlights, and there were some very easy throws that Rattler missed. Tuesday, I'm going to spend this season Tuesday going through all the film of all the games. Last year, I did it on Wednesdays when I was actually writing up the games, but I'm going to change that up a little bit. So after we're done here, I'm going to go watch all the film from all the games, and I'll be able to speak a little bit better to kind of what we saw and what to expect moving forward after that.
Is there anything in particular you look for when watching film? Like, do you go in with like, okay, I'm interested to see like this team or this player, or do you just kind of like watch it with a blank slate and just whatever pops out?
I'm mostly watching schematic stuff. So I'm mostly watching the offensive scheme, how they handled certain situations, what were their situational play calling tendencies. I'm mostly watching the defense, how were there any miscommunications or what were they doing on key situations. So I'm watching the linebackers, the safeties, and I'm watching kind of the pre-snap what's going on for the offense, really.
Love it. Well, I'll definitely have to keep an eye on what your observations are in your Edge articles this week. Hilow, awesome, dude. A great build. Let me just wrap this one up for those listening on the pod. So finished with Drake Maye. Drake Maye stacked with Kendrick Boutte. Keyshawn, that's right. Yeah. Keyshawn Boutte. And then McCaffrey, Chase Brown at the running backs, Brian Thomas Jr., Ricky Pearsall, the receivers, Trey McBride, Chris Olave, and finishing out with the Rams defense. Hilow, any final thoughts, man, before we ship this off as we look forward? Obviously, an early week look here at week 2.
Yeah, so we're effectively, like we talked about in the opener, we're effectively coming off of preseason week 4. So this is effectively like week 1 of the regular season.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to see some teams do things better. We're likely to see some teams continue to struggle, and we're targeting those teams that we think that's going to be with this roster. But what that means is we're also likely to see a trickling effect of like higher scores needed to win major tournaments this week. So keep that in mind when we're building. If you're playing the Millie Maker, you're probably going to need 215, 220 to ship this week, if I had to guess. In single entry stuff like we're looking at here, we're probably going to need in the like 190, 195 range to ship. So build with that in mind as we move forward. Hey, you're not going to see probably 198 shipping the Millie Maker moving forward.
Yes, exactly. Hilo, great stuff, man. Guys, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And once again, remember at 1 week season, they do have a week 2 promotion on their props package, just $9 for week 2. So if you want to check it out, now would be a good time. But guys, good luck this week. Hilo, again, thanks for the time, and we will catch you guys next week on the DFS Lab.